Hi, and welcome to Wellbeing in the Menopause. My name is Theresa Borg. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, psychotherapist, life coach and teacher at Bromley Adult Education College. Today we're going to look at the menopause. We're going to do some theory about it, some tips on how to handle some of the symptoms, but also I'm going to give you a practical way to change the way you think about the menopause, and then finally we're going to learn some mindfulness on how to deal with those physical symptoms. So let's look at some. So what is the menopause? As many of you who are watching this may know, the menopause typically begins between 49 and 52 years of age. Now, some people start earlier, or you can be perimenopausal, which means starting to have some of the symptoms but not being full menopause. And for some unfortunate people, it continues long after it starts. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason for this. There's lots of different theories, but no absolute. It doesn't even seem to run in families. For example, my mum and my older sister suffered quite badly with menopausal symptoms, and yet myself and my younger sister have flown through it. So there really is no kind of inherited pattern, if you like. So medical professionals define menopause as no vaginal bleeding for a year, no period for a year. So you're actually officially in the menopause when menstrual periods stop permanently. You're therefore no longer able to bear children. And it may also be defined by a decrease in the hormone production by the ovaries. Many of you will recognise there are many symptoms, and these can be, especially if you're perimenopausal, irregular periods, vaginal dryness, the well-known hot flushes, which hopefully we will be dealing with in the mindfulness, chills, night sweats, sleep problems, and I would just say there is a video on insomnia and sleep on this channel, and mindfulness on this channel as well, which gives you some really good tips for how to get over those problems during sleep. You might experience mood changes, weight gain and slowed metabolism, thinning of the hair and dry skin, and some people suffer loss of breast fullness. Now, today I can only give you a tiny little sliver of help. And menopause is a huge subject. There's lots of things you can do with diet and exercise and a whole host of other things. And on the 4-week course, Wellbeing in the Menopause at Bromley Adult Education College, we will cover all of those things. But for today, what I want to give you is how to use the mind correctly and how to use the body to try and change some of those physical symptoms. So again, this is just a quick idea. And again, I can't teach you how to use the mind correctly. We have a whole 10-week positive thinking course that does that and changes people's lives in a big way. So today I'm just going to be able to give you a tiny little sliver of this, but just enough to get you to perhaps change the way you use your mind. Very quickly, the mind is a computer. Like your computer, whatever you program into it, it will do. If I program into this laptop, open Word, that's what it will do. It can only open the programs that are on it. It can only follow my instructions. It has no brain of its own to decide what it wants to do, even though to some of us less technical people, it may seem like it has a mind of its own. It really doesn't. So it's important then that you understand the brain is a computer, and then you can program it correctly and use it correctly. So let's think about how to use the mind correctly in a general way first. Okay, so a belief is only something that you have thought about over and over again until it becomes a truth. So what that means in the mind is we are building neural nets. How do you remember somebody's name? You say it over and over and over again to yourself. Well, repetition builds what we call neural nets or knots or webs or files in the brain. And so by repetition, that neural net becomes strengthened, and therefore, like your apps on your computer or your phone, comes to the front of the desktop, comes to the front screen. So in our life, it becomes our first thought of choice. So it's really important to watch your language and to notice the stories that you are telling yourself over and over again. For example, if you tell yourself you cannot sleep, I can't sleep, I'm not getting a wink of sleep, I don't know what's wrong with me, and you tell everyone, telling that continuous story is actually building and reinforcing a neural net in the brain, which becomes an instruction to the body. And so you will not be able to sleep because you have instructed the computer, which instructs the body. Now remember, the body in and of itself is just material. It can't do anything without the brain. You know that because when your brain is dead, your body is dead. Your body can't function without the brain. And therefore, it's mind that gives instructions through the brain to the body. So whatever you think becomes your reality in the body as well. So it's very important when you're talking about those hot flushes, for example, that you're not telling yourself a negative story over and over again about them, which we'll come to in a moment. So the brain is programming by language and repetition, and a belief is something that you have thought over and over until it becomes a truth, or we could say that you've reinforced a neural net that is now so strong it's your first thought of choice. And therefore it's going to play out on the screen, which is your body or your life. Now there's a fabulous exercise which helps you to catch yourself telling yourself that story, your negative thoughts, feelings and behaviours, and I'm going to go through it now. So the first thing you need to do, we need to break the state. If you're continuously telling yourself and everyone else around you about your symptoms of the menopause, etc., etc., you need to stop that. You need to stop programming the mind and the body in that belief. So you take a band, it can be an elastic band or a lovely band or a charity band, whatever, something that you can change over to the other hand very quickly. Now, what happens is you wear this band 24/7, and whenever you catch yourself saying, doing or feeling something negative, generally, or about your menopause symptoms, you stop. You stop yourself and you change the band over to the other hand. Now, what's that really doing? When you change the band over to the other hand, what you're actually doing is breaking the state. You're coming out of the head and doing something physically. So it will stop that story that you're telling yourself. Now, you may have heard of this technique and they will teach you to ping it. But I can ping it all day long and not have any break in my thoughts or my speech. But when I have to just stop for a moment and change the band over, I'm likely to stop what I'm saying, look down and change it over. So in that way I have more chance of actually breaking that train of thought. Stop telling that story, stop building that neural net. Because if I stop building that neural net, it will come apart on its own. We have a phrase that's act for the body and the mind, use it or lose it. If I don't use that neural net, it will come apart on its own. The same way, if I build a beautiful bicep by going to the gym continuously and then stop going, that bicep will start to shrivel away, okay? Because it's use it or lose it. So we want to lose the negative neural nets, we want to lose the negative beliefs, but we also need to fill that space in the brain with something more positive, because the brain will never waste space, and so it will start to bring that neural net back together unless you put something more positive in its place. So to recap, I've caught myself telling myself that negative story. I've changed the band over to the other hand, and now I must say a new mantra, because the mantra builds the new neural net. Positive affirmations will reprogram the brain, and an affirmation is just a little phrase that you say over and over again. Remember, the brain programs by repetition. That we say over and over again that will build a new positive neural net that eventually will come to the front of the desktop and be my first thought of choice. Now, any affirmation must be positive, powerful, and present tense. So the most powerful one that I've ever found is, I am in control of my thoughts, I am in control of my behavior. Because whatever you say after I am is a direct instruction to the body and the mind. I am is the most powerful phrase in the neural net. It's a strong definition. So I am in control of my thoughts, I am in control of my behavior is a very, very powerful mantra. Just close your eyes for one moment and think about how your life would change in every area if that was your first thought of choice. I am in control of my thoughts. I am in control of my behavior. So just do that for one moment. And you'll see that that's the kind of belief. If you have that, you become powerful in your own life. So just to recap, you catch yourself saying, doing, feeling, behaving negatively. You stop. You change the band over to the other hand and you say with feeling, I am in control of my thoughts. I am in control of my behavior. And then go and distract. Either have a happy song in your mind to sing, but what we don't want is you to go back to that run of thoughts, because you might still be in the same physical environment that's pressing that button, okay? So it's important that you then distract. So we'll come back to some more ways the mind thinks and how to use that in a different way towards the end. But for now, let's look at some real practical tips. Now, obviously, sleep is so important, whether you're in the menopause or not, for happiness and health. And again, as I've said, there's another video on sleep if you're having difficulty sleeping. But it's really important to have good sleep hygiene. And for the menopause, it's mostly, isn't it, about temperature. And again, telling a story about your sleep. So make sure, even if you've had the most terrible night, that you don't keep reinforcing that the next day, telling your partner, oh, I had a terrible night's sleep. I can't sleep because of these flushes and all of this. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. But every time you tell that story again, you've reinforced that neural net. Okay? Obviously, fans are really good in the bedroom because it's all about temperature. Wear cotton clothes that you're not going to sweat in. Mindfulness to get you back off to sleep. Again, that's all on the insomnia and sleep video. And again, not to worry if you have broken sleep. Like babies, if they wake up in the night, you don't put the light on and turn the radio on and start talking to them. You leave the light off and you just place your hands and reassure them. Okay, because we don't want them to get into their conscious mind and become awake. In the same way, even if you're throwing the quilt off because you're having a flush, or putting the quilt back on because you're having a flush, it's important that you just do it and not have a story about it. Because once you've told a story, you're in the wake conscious mind. Don't look at the clock. Just say, this is, just accept that this is what is. And cool for a moment, know that it will change. The only constant in life is that it will change. You will not be super hot all night and you will not be super cold all night, because you will take the quilt off or you will put the quilt on. Therefore, it's irrelevant. The story is irrelevant. You don't want to reinforce those neural nets. So you just do what you need to do, and without any judgment about it. Really, really important. And there's other ways of thinking about sleep breaks on the insomnia and sleep video that will really help you with that. But I haven't got time to go into it all for now. Okay, eating well, again, this is a whole field. We do a whole week on it on the 4-week program. But just for now, just some basic tips. Eat a well-balanced diet. Consider your intake of vitamins like B, C, D and E. Plant-based estrogens that mimic the effect of our natural hormone that your body produces are very good. Omega-3 fats for both joint health and the brain. And if you didn't want to do hormone replacement therapy, black cohosh is the natural remedy, the natural alternative to a hormone replacement therapy. And again, you know, that it's a huge subject that I haven't got time to go into today. Another good tip is to avoid certain foods, packaged foods, conventional meat, and foods with added sugar. They're all known to affect your health and well-being during the menopause. It's important to moderate or even to avoid caffeine and alcohol consumption, not only for body health, physical health, but obviously they affect sleep and stimulation as well. Practice breathing exercises and mindfulness, and we're going to do that towards the end. Stay hydrated. Again, you know, water is so important, and because your metabolism may slow and you may start to put on weight that may affect your mood and how you feel about yourself, it's really important that if you're drinking your 8 glasses of water a day, and instead when you feel like you're hungry, you drink a glass of water before you eat anything, what we find is that because most people are long-term dehydrated, we've lost the ability to sense what's the difference between thirst and hunger. So we tend to think if our throat is dry, we're thirsty. But actually thirst is felt as well in the gut. And it's a really good weight loss tip as well, that if you drink a glass of water before you assess whether you're hungry or not, then actually it helps you to eat less. You're getting your 8 glasses of water a day, which obviously helps your skin and your hair and all of the other things that may, become dehydrated during the menopause. So water is the key. And again, if you don't like water, you can dilute it very, very weakly and wean yourself down each day. Dilute it less and less and less till eventually you won't need the diluted orange or whatever it may be. And finally, take regular exercise. This improves your strength, because again, we can be at risk from osteoporosis, the bones thinning or becoming fragile. So regular exercise, especially weight-bearing exercise, improves your bone health, improves strength in the muscles, agility, again, oiling those joints, omega-3, important here as well. But also it improves your mood. And it creates tiredness, which again improves sleep. If you have exercise through the day, again, it affects your circadian rhythms, the light source in the body that tells the difference between night and day. All of these things help sleep. And if you can sleep well, getting through the menopause is so much easier, because you're generally just going to feel a whole lot better. And finally, the kind of leading on to the mindfulness tips. Now, if you're not sleeping, you're not sleeping. And, you know, if you've woken up and you haven't had a good night's sleep, it's over. It's in the past. There's nothing you can do about it. Just accept it. And it's all about the story that you're going to tell yourself about that. So if we can just find a way of accepting, okay, this is what's happening to me. What can I do about it now? Not telling the past story, but focusing on the now. It's really an amazing way to live. So acceptance is key. And it's okay to feel upset, or it's okay to feel vulnerable. It's okay to cry. Emotions are natural. Emotions are healthy. Letting out emotions, punching pillows if you feel angry, crying when you feel upset. And again, in the menopause, lots of us become very emotional. Well, okay, some places it's not acceptable or it's not, a good thing to be emotional. But, take yourself off to the loo and have a little cry. Or, go and punch pillows somewhere where you won't be seen. But it's important to express those emotions. Writing them out is a really good thing to do. If you look just further down on the page there, journal about your rage. Journal about how grateful you are to be alive. Journal that, about how you're feeling and how people are treating you at work or whatever it may be, because just getting it out on that paper is the equivalent of crying, is the equivalent of punching the pillows. It's getting it out. It's when we hold on to that emotion that it becomes the problem, because emotion is energy in motion. Energy in motion. E equals mc squared, if you like, the energy in motion. And it's supposed to move. It's supposed to be released. We all know what happens to pent up energy. You can't hold it for long. Eventually it's going to explode out. So it's better just as it arises to express any emotion. Having someone to talk to about it. If you can't, you can journal. But if you have got someone you can just let go with, who's just listen, who will just understand, just allow yourself to vent to your partner, and just tell them beforehand, I just want to vent. I don't want you to solve my problems, because men tend to want to solve problems. I just want you to just let me get it off my chest. It's not about you, it's about me. I just need to release the energy. And again, that's a really powerful thing to do. So express all those emotions, then move on. Okay, I've had my cry, now I feel better. Let me do something positive. Watch your stories. This is where the band exercise comes in, and change them. If you want to tell a negative story, you're going to build a negative neural net. It's become a negative belief, and it's going to become your first thought of choice. Need to change the story. Find the silver lining wherever you can. Recognize your strengths and use them. If you're emotionally resilient, if you're really good at helping others, taking the focus off yourself and your problems is key. It works really well for depression and things like that, because we tend to become centralized focus. It's all about, I can't sleep, I'm having hot flushes, me. Whereas when you can share that or help others or use that in a positive way. I found black cohosh works really well. You feel empowered by that, and you don't feel victim to the menopause. And that's one of the things that is really important. You don't feel victim to your symptoms. Never be victim to anything in life. Surround yourself with positive people, or even surround yourself with other people who are experiencing the same thing, with the caveat that it doesn't become a moaning session. Let it be a session where you are allowed to express your emotions and then bring in the positive solutions. Always be solution focused. If you're going to join groups like that, don't just let them become venting negative places. Or alternatively, surround yourself with people and don't allow your group of friends to talk about it, even though you may all be going through it. Don't dwell on it. Don't reinforce those neural nets. Change the subject. Talk about something great. Treat yourself well. Beautiful baths, relaxation, massages. Because again, massages releases the energy and the tension built up in the body, especially when we feel frustrated that we can't change the situation that we're in. We store it on the emotional, physical level. So massage is really brilliant for releasing all of that as well. And we've talked about journaling. And finally, laugh. My mantra is, if nobody died, it was a positive outcome. If you didn't sleep, you didn't die, nobody died, so what? You'll sleep better the next day. Let that become your mantra. It's okay, I'll sleep better the next day. And on the sleep video, one of the things I tell them, everybody laughs when I say this, but you start to do it, believe me, you'll see the difference. Instead of going, Oh, I feel so tired. I don't want to get up for work. It's cold. It's horrible out there. If that's your first thought of the day, that's an instruction to the body. That's how you're going to start your day, on a low vibration. Make the first thing you say, you jump out of the bed, you stretch, and you go, woohoo, I'm alive, I feel great today. That's an instruction to the body. You will start your day on a high. Don't lay in bed telling negative stories. Set your alarm for the minute you need to get up and do that as the first thing you do and say, and then get on with your day. Believe me, you will feel completely different. And finally, mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment non-judgmentally, just as it is. And that's Jon Kabat-Zinn, one of the big names in mindfulness. So let's just read that again to understand what it really means. Mindfulness is paying attention, being conscious of what you're doing to the present moment. Not worrying about the future, not worrying about the past, noticing what's happening now. And this is where the band exercise comes in. Soon as you catch, you've got to be conscious to catch that negative thought. In the present moment, you change the band and you can change that thought. The only place you can make change is now. So mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment now, non-judgmentally. That's what I was talking about. Don't have a story about sleep. Don't have a story about this flush. This flush just is. If it's not positive, it's not negative. But I know it will change. I know it won't last for long. They last a couple of minutes at the most. And you just breathe through them and they'll disappear, and we'll do that in a moment. Mindfulness meditation establishes concentration and a different focus, allowing you to observe the flow of inner thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations without judging them as good or bad. So in the mindfulness, we just accept, this is what I'm experiencing. It may get better for a moment and then it will dissipate away, and then you can just return to the observation of the breath. And then you will be able to tell, if you choose, a more positive story about it, or you will just be able to let it go. There's different ways of doing mindfulness. For what we're going to do today, we're just going to let it go. And this can help you to accept the state of being, because what you resist persists. And if you continue to tell those negative stories and think that it should be something different, when you have no power over it as such, because it's physical, or you believe you have no power over it, then it's going to stay there because you've built neural nets that are holding on to it. Okay, so let's now put that mindfulness in practice. So now let us learn how to breathe correctly. So when we do any kind of mindfulness relaxation, what we need to do is to breathe correctly. So when you breathe in, your tummy should be extending outwards, and when you breathe out, the tummy should deflate. That's the natural, normal way that you were born breathing. That creates a slow breath and a deep breath. So in a moment, what we're going to do is we're going to keep to my nice slow count. We're going to start 1 in the tummy. And we're going to imagine a coloured mist. I'll just use pink. So we're going to see the breath as a coloured mist coming up the spine. Count 2 will be the chest, reaching the top of the head, and that's the end of the in-breath. And then on the out-breath, we follow that pink mist all the way back to the chest and back to the tummy. Okay, so I'm giving the conscious mind something to focus on. We're going to be feeling the tummy rising and falling, and then we're going to listen to the breath. Okay, so let's do that together, and then I'll lead us on into the mindfulness practice. So as we close our eyes, we breathe in, count 2 the chest, 3 the top of the head, and reverse the process down. seeing the mist coming up the chest, reaching the top of the head and following the mist back down. Tummy's extending over the whole of the 3 counts in and relaxing on the out. Breathing in, follow the path to the top of the head and allow the breath to fall. So I'm going to be quiet for a few moments while you continue practicing, keeping to my lovely slow pace, that wonderful breathing process. Remembering tummy should be extending over the whole of the 3 counts in and relaxing on the whole of the 3 counts out. May feel strange to start with, you've got to retrain yourself back into that. Seeing the pink mist coming up the spine, reaching each point, the chest and the top of the head, and then reversing its pathway back down. And now I want you to really come in and listen to your breath. And if you practice this breathing every single day, just continue to breathe while I talk. If you were to practice this breathing starting first thing in the morning, maybe just before you go to sleep, and all day as much as you can, you will eventually train yourself that this is your natural, normal way of breathing, and this is actually the breath of a calm, confident person. It will become your natural way of breathing and you won't even have to think about it anymore. Now I want you to imagine or remember the last time you had a flush. Not in bed, but in the daytime. Now how we're going to handle it in future is you'll start to do this nice, long, slow, deep breath in and the nice, long, slow, deep breath out. And as you're doing that, you'll focus just on the breathing. Now because we're going to be focusing on the physical, what you'll find is that flush gets a little bit stronger just for a moment, and then it will eventually dissipate away. Because you can't be in one state for a long period. And when you're in watching, feeling, experiencing that flush, make sure there's no verbal language about it. Oh, I'm so hot, this is too much, whatever. You're just focusing on the breathing, noticing, oh, how exciting. I have energy moving. That's all. No flush words, nothing about heat, temperature. Just the general acknowledgement, acceptance that there is energy moving within you. And a knowing that it's going to be over really quickly. And what you'll notice is, if you were able to do that in that moment, instead of having a negative story and prolonging the process, what you'll find is these get quicker and quicker, and they become less and less significant to you. Because you'll be able to, with practice, just take a nice breath in and a nice long breath out. A couple of seconds till that flush dissipates away, leaving just the observation of the breath, and then you'll be ready to start your day again. And we can use this process also with negative emotion. If you feel negative emotion arising and yet it's not the right place to express that, you can just take a nice, long, slow, deep breath in. See the mist. Feel the tummy rising and falling. Listen to the breath. No matter where you are, you can do it with your eyes open if you have to. And you can just breathe, release that slowly, slowly. And it may take a couple of breaths until you're well practiced. I like to physically take a step back because that means in my mind I've removed myself from that situation that's causing any negative emotion. I physically just take a step back and I take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And now I feel and think differently because I've given myself a gap. I've become objective rather than in the subjective mix of what was going on in that moment. And you'll have to practice these things, building the neural net, instructing the body. But if you do this, you'll see that this is a really valuable tool for at least easing your symptoms of menopause. Now in a moment, I'm going to ask you to open the eyes and to come back to the space, remembering everything that I've told you for future reference. So get ready now. All useful parts of you coming back to the space, back to full awareness, open the eyes, have a lovely, lovely stretch. So I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. Just to remind you that there are other videos on this YouTube channel for insomnia and sleep, the positive thinking, how the mind works in a bit more detail than we were able to do today, and mindfulness. All of these will help you with your menopause, and there are longer term classes available at www.baec.ac.uk, Bromley Adult Education College site. Free meditations for sleep and relaxation on my website www.positivelyjoyous.com, or there's a whole host of meditations and relaxations and self-hypnosis available on YouTube and on phone apps, etc, etc. So look forward to seeing you perhaps on the 4-week menopause course in future. Have a fantastic day. My name's Theresa Borg. Thank you for joining me.